Welcome back to the channel. Racer X here, and today's video is all about the Hemi engine. And as many of you guys may be aware that follow my channel pretty regularly, a few months back I put out a video explaining why Stellantis decided to ditch the Hemi, all of the decisions that kind of went into that, all the numbers. I tried to paint a holistic picture of exactly why that decision was made. And recently I've had a lot of folks messaging me, hey Racer X, I've been hearing rumors about a new V8 Hemi that's going to go in the 2024 Charger. We've seen kind of the spy photos that are out there. We know it will be both an EV and an internal combustion offering. And the rumors are swirling out there about a new V8 for that car. Well, I will tell you what all of the evidence really points towards. We will get into it today. If you guys are brand new to my channel, please do me a big gigantic favor. Hit that subscribe button. You can find it right over here. Only 19% of you guys watching this video at home are subscribed to the channel, and it really does help out. So if you guys are ready, let's get to it.
T-minus 15 seconds.
I've actually referenced this multiple times in the past, but if you really understand the design of the Hemi engine, you realize that yes, they make excellent power, which is why we love them, but they're also not very carb compliant just by their very design. It's a well-known feature of the Hemi engine. And in my previous video, I talked a lot about the numbers that Stellantis is having to pay, the millions and millions of dollars of fines and the billions of dollars they're having to spend on credits buying from Tesla, who's a direct competitor, to basically continue to make these V8 Hemis and put them in production cars. So I want to play a really short clip from my previous video to set the stage for what I'm about to tell you next.
In one single quarter, Stellantis paid Tesla $518 million. Think about that kind of just money that's floating around there. They're just trying to meet these EPA regulations. I mean, that is an insane number to think about. That is one quarter. So you can imagine how all this money adds up. Stellantis bought $2.43 billion worth of credits from Tesla from 2019 to 2021. You want to talk about a big chunk of money. And guess what? That is 100% profit for Tesla, like I mentioned before. And that is actually how Tesla is able to turn a profit every single quarter. It is simply based on the fact that they're able to sell EPA credits to companies like Stellantis and GM. And that is a little bit of a weird business model.
So as you can see, that's not a very sustainable business model based on those numbers. So something had to be done to bring the Mopar group into a more compliant state. Now, one of the other things that I did not talk about on my previous video, but after studying the CAFE regulations in further detail, is that they actually scrutinize over the smog index even more than they do fuel economy. And there is a difference. So when you look at the sticker of any car, it will give you both. I know a lot of people tend to gloss over that. They simply look at like fuel economy, what's it get city, what's it get highway, all that kind of stuff. But over in the corner there, you've got your smog index there as well. And that is a huge factor when you start to look at how compliant these cars are. So let's take a little deeper dive into that so you can really understand what's going on. Things start to get pretty convoluted when you look at all of the factors that go into emissions, and they give you a couple of different sliding scales there on your sticker. You're going to have your greenhouse gases there, and you got your smog index over there to the right, and that's what I want to focus on because really that's the measure of just how clean these cars tend to run, and that is the most glaring statistic when you start comparing other cars to the Hemi, because the argument is, how can Ford and Chevy continue to give us V8s when Stellantis can't? What's the deal there? Well, let's look at the smog indexes. So when you look at a 2024 Mustang Dark Horse, it comes in at a 5, despite the fact it is a V8. The same with a 2024 Mustang GT. When you jump up to a C8 Corvette from Chevy, same thing. It comes in at a 5 on the smog index, and even the mighty Z06, 670 horsepower, flat plane crank, V8, an absolute monster that revs to the moon, it comes in at a 3, which just so happens to be the exact same that the smallest of the Hemis comes in at. The 5.7 liter Hemi comes in at a 3. Now, when you jump up to the 6.4, it goes all the way down to a 1, which is obviously the lowest that scale goes. It's the worst on the smog index that it gets, right? So you also have the same thing, obviously, when you go to the Hellcat, when you go to the Demon, all of that good stuff. And just for illustration, if you look at something like a Grand Wagoneer, Well, you've got the 6.4 in the Grand Wagoneer, and it of course comes in at a 1 on the smog index, and that actually is the base trim. Now, when you jump up to the more powerful inline 6 Hurricane on the Series 2, it actually jumps all the way up to a 5. A vast difference. So it's slightly more economical in terms of fuel, but it is vastly better on the smog index. So that gives you something to think about. Now, some would argue that GM and Ford spent a lot more time designing their V8s. They're a lot more modern, and that might be why they're more carb compliant. And yes, there probably is something to that. I mean, if you look at the new generation, the 2024 Coyote, it's dual intakes, twin throttle bodies, and a lot of the reason that they did that actually is for carb compliance, because that engine really doesn't make a lot more power than the S550 engine did, but it is more carb compliant. Now, we know the Camaro's going away, and that thing traditionally was also one of the more dirty cars that GM produced. However, on the C8, that engine actually seems to run pretty clean despite it basically being the same engine. So they obviously made some changes with that car to keep it more carb compliant, which is why they can continue to give us those. So do keep that in mind. And as I mentioned, the Hemi, it is what it is. It's not a design that's friendly for carb compliance. Now, when you look at some of the other engines that are out there, and this is just for illustration, like a Viper, for example. I pulled up a sticker on a Viper thinking that thing would be awful. I mean, big old gnarly V10, right? 8.3 liters. It still comes in at a 5. Remember, it's not a Hemi. So there is that piece of it. Even like an Audi R8 V10 Plus. I thought maybe that thing would be super low. It definitely is not. It comes in at a 5 as well. So it just goes to show how dirty the Hemis are when you look at the smog index, which is a massive reason why we have to make a change. Something else I want to address just really quick, because I've had a lot of questions about this and there's a lot of rumors flying around about this as well. What about a hydrogen-powered Hemi? We hear it's in the works. It's very possible it's going to go into the new Charger. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not. I actually asked the head engineer over the Hemi program when I was up at Dodge for Roadkill Nights just a few months ago about that very thing, and he basically just laughed at me. And it's not that they couldn't do it. I never want to put it out there and say they couldn't do it, because I believe they could. But the infrastructure is not there. You can't go to your local filling station and just get hydrogen. I'm not saying you couldn't get it anywhere, but it has to be readily available. And the truth is, it's just not. As a matter of fact, what you're starting to see a lot more of is charging stations, which makes a lot more sense because there's this massive push to go to EV. So I just want to kind of just set the record straight. Do not believe at all that there's a hydrogen-powered Hemi in the works. Another critical point as to why it's extremely unlikely that we're going to see a V8 from FCA moving into the future is because, well, they're owned by Stellantis. It's been about 3 years ago since that big merger happened, and Stellantis is a big European umbrella company, and there are a lot of brands that sit under the Stellantis umbrella, and most of them are really focused towards the European market, right? They want small, they want, the compact fuel economy, European styling, all that sort of stuff. FCA was always focused more towards the American market, and then you have to blend the two, right? Which is pretty hard to do. And when you really look at the performance brands under the Stellantis umbrella, in my mind, their luxury or performance brands are going to be Alfa Romeo or Maserati. I mean, Alfa Romeo, they're not making any performance V8s at all. Matter of fact, they don't have a V8 in the stable at all anymore. And when you look at Maserati, that's kind of the bad daddy of the entire Stellantis lineup when it comes to exotic and power and all that kind of stuff. Yes, they still have a couple of V8s out there. Matter of fact, they're putting them in 3 different cars for 2023, and they're all pretty darn cool. But their baddest cars, like the MC20, they actually have a hybrid 6 going in there, and those are the ones they're going to continue to make into the future. And the V8s that they have moving into 2024, they're all going away. They have a few performance models that they're making, and then after that, they're all going away. So there won't be any other V8s in the Stellantis stable at all. So here is something else. Carlos Tavares, the CEO of Stellantis, has already come out and said they are executing on their 2030 program, which means that in Europe, by the year 2030, that's only 6 model years from now, they want to have all of their cars be EV. That is a massive undertaking. In the US market, they expect that 50% of all the cars that they sell are going to be EVs. As you can see, the writing is on the wall. Everything is moving away from big V8s. We're going hybrids and EVs moving forward. That is the focus. Whether you like it or not, that's the truth. So if we're being completely honest, if we were going to get a brand new V8 from FCA, it would have to be completely redesigned and be very CARB compliant, which as we know is very hard to do considering everything else that is going on out there. I personally have not been able to substantiate anything from my contacts within the organization, my contacts outside the organization, anything leading me to believe that there's going to be a V8 coming from these guys. But everything I have heard is that they're going to be moving more towards hybrid technology and more towards this like Hurricane lineup, which I'm actually pretty excited about. I know a lot of you guys don't like that, but being an enthusiast, knowing that it's more fuel efficient, it's more powerful, the tuning potential, I've talked about it at length, all the different things that come with the Hurricane. I know it doesn't sound like a V8, but I think it will be pretty cool when they're done showing us everything that that engine can do, all the different trims it has. I know a lot of people aren't excited about the new EV charger, obviously the Banshee coming down, all that kind of stuff. Yes, it will be fast. Will it have soul? I won't know until I drive it, but I just, there's nothing out there that's hiding, lurking in the wings, some sort of conspiracy theory. They're purposely lying to us about a new V8, all this kind of stuff. I cannot substantiate any of that. So I just kind of want to put it out there for you guys. That's everything that I know at this point. Not to say things couldn't change, but I just want to, be realistic with you guys. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments down below, and I will catch you on the next one. So until then, Racer X.